We call it modern medicine, and we say the words the way the pious once said the name of a god. But look closely at what we are kneeling to. We have raised a cathedral of tubes and scanners and sterile light, a temple that can measure the sodium in your blood to the third decimal and tell you nothing whatsoever about whether your life is worth waking up for. It is a science fluent in numbers and illiterate in meaning. It can read the body the way a man reads a stock ticker, and it has roughly the same idea of what either one is for. Somewhere between the laboratory and the boardroom, it mistook maintenance for healing, mistook the silencing of a symptom for the restoration of a self, and it had the audacity to call the confusion progress. Once, science promised liberation. The Enlightenment dreamed that knowledge would set us free in the flesh and in the spirit, that the same light which mapped the heavens would heal the wound in the human animal. That was the dream. The reality is a subscription service for the meat. We do not cultivate health any longer. We manage conditions. We curate dysfunction. We throw confetti at survival and avert our eyes from the question of vitality, because vitality cannot be built and survival can be built forever. You know the old nursery rhyme. There was an old lady who swallowed a fly. Nobody knows why she swallowed the fly, but having swallowed it, she found herself with a fly inside her, which is intolerable, so she swallowed a spider to catch the fly. The spider wriggled and tickled, and now there was a spider problem, so she swallowed a bird to catch the spider, and a cat to catch the bird, and a dog and a cow, and on it goes, each remedy a fresh catastrophe demanding a larger remedy, the cures stacking up inside her like sediment, until the final line of the song, which everyone forgets, is the punchline. She is dead, of course. That is not a children's rhyme. That is a clinical case study. That is the most honest description of modern medicine ever set to melody. Because that is precisely how the pharmaceutical empire runs, as a subscription model written in the grammar of the body. You do not fix the problem. Fixing the problem would be the end of the relationship, and no empire was ever built on a cured customer. The symptom is not a mystery to be solved. The symptom is a renewable resource. Your blood pressure climbs, so here is a beta blocker to slow the heart you were never taught to calm, and a statin for the cholesterol nobody asked you to earn through a life of stillness and sugar. The beta blocker dims you, so here is something for the fatigue. The statin aches in your muscles, so here is something for that. You cannot sleep, so here is the spider. You cannot wake, so here is the bird. The reflux from the whole arrangement gets a proton pump inhibitor. The inhibitor unsettles the gut gets its own prescription, and when the cascade finally buckles under its own weight, they wheel in the surgery, gleaming in stainless steel and wrapped in the language of hope. She swallowed the cure to catch the symptom. I don't know why she swallowed the cure. And the reason the song never ends with health is that there is no money in the ending. There is no money in telling a human being to eat what grows, to sleep when it is dark, to move the body it was issued, to stand in the sun and breathe air that has not been monetized. Nobody floats an IPO on sunlight. Nobody corners the market on a long walk. You cannot build a quarterly earnings call on a population that is simply well because wellness, real wellness, is the absence of a transaction. So the machine discovered the oldest and holiest grail of commerce, which is this: teach the herd to fear death, and then charge them rent on the postponement of it. When the rent finally comes due, we are ushered into the theater of mercy, the palliative wing, the last act, where life and death are processed as administrative inconveniences to be smoothed over with the right forms and the right infusions. And here is the open secret that physicians will tell you only when the recorder is off and the hour is late. Many of them would refuse the very interventions they prescribe. They know how the story ends. They have stood in the room. They know the humming machines and the sterile glare and the body pumped full of chemistry and denial, kept technically alive while every recognizable feature of a living person quietly evacuates the premises. That is not compassion. That is choreography. It is an elaborate dance we perform around our collective terror of letting go, and we have mistaken the dance for caring. Do not blame the dancers. The doctors are trapped inside the cathedral the same as everyone else, trained from the first day to read death as a personal defeat, to interpret mortality as a bug rather than the feature that makes the whole program meaningful. They fight entropy with plastic and code because the institution handed them plastic and code and called it medicine and offered them nothing else. They were given the illusion of control and told it was a calling. And if the body is over-engineered, the mind is over-explained. We have taken the entire weather system of the human interior, the storms and the droughts and the ordinary gray afternoons of the soul, and we have flattened it into diagnostic codes. Every flicker of being alive is now a disorder with a corresponding capsule. You are anxious. Here is a pill. You cannot concentrate inside a civilization engineered to shatter concentration. Here is a pill. You grieve too long. You love too hard. You think too wildly and too far outside the permitted band. Here is a pill, and another for the way the first one makes you feel. It is all a chemical imbalance, they assure us. But an imbalance measured against what? Against whose baseline? When exactly did feeling become a pathology? Are these compounds a counterweight to some genuine derangement? Or are they tranquilizers handed out to a culture that would rather sedate the symptom than ask the unbearable question of why nearly everyone, everywhere, quietly feels broken? The cure for loneliness was never serotonin. The cure for burnout was never a capsule. But try submitting human connection to the insurer. Try coding belonging. It does not pay, so it does not exist. Meanwhile, the heretics, the ones standing at the edge of the temple, muttering their dangerous gospel of food and rest and movement and community, are treated as a contagion. And notice, the danger they pose is not that they are wrong. The danger is that they are unprofitable. They threaten an apparatus that feeds on dysfunction the way a fire feeds on air. So they reach for the old reliable words, fringe, unscientific, quack, whatever syllable keeps the congregation faithful to the pill. Because a population that healed itself for free would be the single greatest market collapse in the history of the species. Here's what we have built. A civilization addicted to symptom management, virtuosic at conquering pain, sterilizing death, and optimizing performance, and somehow, in all that mastery, it has misplaced the instructions for being alive. And the grotesque thing, the truly grotesque thing, is not the machinery or the chemistry or even the greed, which is at least an honest vice. It is the philosophy underneath. It is a cult that worships the body as hardware and has forgotten the human as software, a priesthood that will recalibrate the brain but never speak to the soul, that will replace the organ and never once tend to the organism. The body is not a machine with broken parts, it is an ecology. It is a vast, ancient, self-correcting wilderness of cells in conversation, and you cannot fix a wilderness by isolating one tree and medicating it. Health was never a list of numbers in range. Health is a relationship between the body and the food and the light and the work and the people and the meaning. Reductionism takes that living web, that holism, and lays it on a steel table and cuts it into nameable pieces and then stands there genuinely baffled that the patient on the table is no longer breathing. You took the system apart to understand it, and understanding turned out to be the autopsy. So here we stand, luminous screens in one hand and prescriptions in the other, half alive in the data, half dead in the denial. The great miracle of modern medicine, the headline they will never print, is that it has learned to keep us breathing longer precisely so that we may suffer longer, and call the extension a gift. The old lady is still swallowing. The fly is still in there. And somewhere, a man in a white coat is reaching for the next animal in the sequence, and somewhere a quarterly report is glowing green. And don't worry at all, there is a pill for that too.